I don't like how it's looking that way. Okay, do it this way. Okay, so that is direct and reported speech. So when it says up here, this is ESL Library. It's a very similar thing, but it's a little, I like this version of this lesson better. Okay, so if it says, when it says direct and reported speech up here, direct means direct, right? A direct quote. Reported means indirect, something that you report, something that you are saying someone else says. So those are the opposite things, direct and reported. Okay, so let's talk, we are talking about indirect speech a little bit. Let's talk about direct speech. It says direct speech is mainly used to write dialogue or quoted speech. Do you know what dialogue is?
Dialogue.
What is a dialogue?
It's kind of a conversation.
Conversation.
Yep, it's a conversation between two people, right? So if you are writing or reading a dialogue between two people, that's a conversation. That's a ton of books, right? Especially like novels, fiction books. When there's a story, people are always talking, and that's a dialogue, and they're going to be in quotations, okay? Or quoted speech. The doctor said, blah, 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 right? That's direct speech, directly saying what the doctor said. Okay, so for example, if you are, if you are directly quoting someone, okay, if you are, so not what we just said for indirect, if you are directly quoting someone, and these are your examples right here, okay, so there's two different kinds, at the end of a sentence and at the beginning of a sentence. So let's look at the end of a sentence, and I will send you this in the WhatsApp if you want it for later, or you can take notes. Okay, so at the end of a sentence, so if you are putting at the beginning, the doctor said, the professor said, Victor asked, Veronica questioned, right? Lydia said, Gonzalo screamed, Giselle laughed, blah, blah, blah. You know, like if you're saying that at the beginning and then you are directly quoting them, you are going to place a comma after the reporting verb. A reporting verb is right here. It says the word said, commented, added, yelled, explained. All of these words that are basically mean the word said, but in different ways. Okay? So if I said like Lydia added, that's saying like you added something on, you said something in addition to someone else. Okay, or commented, these are all just different ways to say the word said. These are called reporting verbs. Okay, so after the reporting verb if your quote is at the end of the sentence, you will put a comma, just like all of these. The doctor said, comma, then you will put your first quotation mark. Take your medicine every day. Okay, and this quotation will begin with a capital letter. Okay, will begin with a capital letter. The doctor said, take your medicine every day. Then you will put a period, an exclamation point, right? Like, woohoo, an exclamation point, a question mark, whatever your end punctuation is, then you will put the other quotation mark after the punctuation if you're directly quoting someone in English. Okay, so the doctor said, take your medicine every day. Okay, there's your comma, there's your first quotation, capital letter, punctuation at the end, question mark, exclamation point, or period. Those are your three choices. And then the quotation mark, again, to end it, beginning and end. Okay, so other examples are, the professor said, we will have a test tomorrow afternoon. Okay, so you have your word said or commented, whatever. You have your comma right after that, your first quotation, capital letter, period or a punctuation, and then your second quotation. The candidate, remember candidate is someone running for a position, for a job. Our two presidents right now are presidential candidates. Joe Biden is a candidate, right, in our election. So someone who's running for a position. So when we talked about applying for jobs, you are a candidate, a job candidate. Okay, so that's the keyword candidate. The candidate commented or said or added, whatever, I have always been honest, right? That's a direct quote that you are saying from the candidate. You have your comma, quotation, your capital letter, punctuation, and then your second quotation mark. Okay. Victor asked, comma, after your verb, why do you always come late? There's your first quotation, capital letter, punctuation is a question mark, and second quotation. Okay. Now let's look at the other type, is if you have at the beginning of the sentence. Okay, so if your quotation is at the beginning of the sentence, okay, that's all, it just is switched. Okay, so you're going to start with your quotation, a capital letter, then at the end of your quotation is going to be either, this changes, a comma, exclamation mark, or a question mark, never a period. Okay? So if you were going to put a period, you will put a comma, then the next quotation mark, and then the name of the person who said whatever. Kilye whispered, and then a period. So you will insert or put the second set of quotation marks after the comma, and then you will say the subject, the person who is talking, and the reporting verb, and end it with a period. If you are putting the quotation at the beginning. Okay, so for example, I have always loved you, Kilye whispered, sorry. Okay, so the quotation, capital letter, comma, or exclamation point, or question mark. But if it was going to be a period, you will put a comma, second quotation mark, the name, then the verb, and then a period. This will be in the past. They will all be in the past. All of these verbs are in the past. If when you're quoting someone, because you're quoting someone who spoke in the past. Okay, this second example, take your bags and report to section 5. The sergeant screamed. Do you know what a sergeant is? Like a top military person, I think. Yeah, you're doing this. I'm thinking the same thing. I'm like, I'm pretty, like, you're like, like, yes, sir. That's like your sergeant.
Yes, sir.
So it says, take your bags and report to section 5. That's an exclamation point, right? Because you're assuming that he's speaking with force. Okay, so in that case, there can be an exclamation point. But it starts with the quote, capital letter, punctuation, then the quote. So your quotation marks will always go after the punctuation. And then it says, the sergeant screamed, period. Why do you always bother me? The trainer asked. Okay, so quotation, capital letter for the W. Why do you always bother me? Question mark in this case. End quotation, subject, verb. Okay, these are the differences. And this is how you're going to directly quote someone in your writing. And when you read, this is how you will see it in English. Are there any initial questions? Of course, we will practice, but is anyone confused? Like, wait, explain this to me again. No? Okay, that's good. Okay, so oh, this we're not, okay, so this is if it's split. This does not happen very often, but if it's like if Bob says, I think Bob said that this is the worst day of my life. Okay, do you see how the quotations are split? Are in, like, it's in between, the comments are in between. So this is the same thing. You'll begin with your first set of quotation marks. You'll capitalize the beginning. And then at the end of the quote, you'll put another quotation mark, and then the subject, Bob commented, and then another quotation mark. But this second part will not be capitalized. And then it'll end like normal. This doesn't happen very often. I'm not very concerned that you know how to do this perfectly, okay? Because normally we just say it all at once. But if you do see this in reading, it's just say, like, it's splitting up the subject and the verb. Okay, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. Okay, then this is what we already talked about. So we just talked about direct speech up here. Earlier at the beginning of our class, we talked about indirect or reported speech, same thing. Okay, and it says back it up, right? Usually the tense will go backwards, and we talked about that, right? The present will change to the past, right? He said, right? He said that he could go, right? That's what we just did in indirect. Okay? And then these are just examples, okay, of what we already talked about, right? I love you is direct. She said that she loved me. I am going to a party, direct. Then the reported tense, so this is direct in the simple present, and then reported or indirect. Changes to, he said that he was going to the party. If it's present perfect, I have already eaten. She said that she had already eaten. Okay, so you see how if it's in the direct speech tense, okay, it's just going to go back. Okay, so it'll change to the past. You will have a test on Tuesday. The professor said that we would have a test on Tuesday. Okay, so whatever tense it is in the present, it'll just switch to the past of that tense. Okay, this is also good to look at. Again, I'll send this to you just to refresh your brain on tenses, on different tenses. And next week, we're going to look at a lot of different tenses. We're going to do a kind of a grammar thing with that. But okay, so this just gives you an idea of what we already talked about, how to change direct speech into indirect speech. All switches to the past. But remember, that's only in formal speech. So the second one, the second verb, like we talked about, doesn't always have to be in the second. Okay? These are, these are notes. Oh, okay, so it says here, a simple present verb, note 1, we're not going to go through all of these, but can be reported in the simple present instead of the past when the action has just occurred or if the statement is a well-known fact. Okay, so Veronica, that was kind of like your question. You said, what if it just happened? You can put it in the past, like totally normal. But if someone said, like, Ruth said that she loves me, you could say it that way. Like if Ruth said, I love you, right? And you said, oh, what did Ruth say to you? Ruth said that she loves me. That's reported speech. That's normal. But you could say, Ruth always tells me that she loves me, right? If it's continuous. But that's not necessarily reported speech. That's all that's talking about. And these you already know. Okay? So I want to look at these exercises. Okay? So I want you, just a minute. I'm going to stop. Okay, that's fine. So I want you to look, and it says, punctuate the following sentences. Use direct speech. Okay, so use capital letters where necessary. Okay, so you are this is all direct speech, what we talked about up here. Okay, so you are going to put in the punctuation for this direct speech. Oops, sorry. Okay, so for example, we can do the first one together. So I want you to have, if you don't have a pen and paper, I learned that. I want you to have a pen and paper. Okay, so it says, John said, I am very happy to meet you. Okay, so you're going to write down, what did John say? This is direct speech using your correct punctuation. Okay, so let's do the first one together. So write it down on your pen, with your pen and paper, and use the correct punctuation.
Okay, hay que ponerlo en directo. He. Here is indirect.
Okay, can you see mine? John said, comma, quotation mark, I am happy to meet you, period or exclamation point. It doesn't matter. End quotation mark.
Yeah.
Okay, John said, comma, quotation mark, capital I, of course, capital letter, I am happy to meet you, period or exclamation point. I am happy to meet you. If it's like that, then exclamation point. Either way. End quotation mark. Okay, that's how the first one looks. Okay, so take a couple minutes and try the next few. I'll give you a few minutes, of course. Try the next ones by yourself.
So. Primero que integré. Consumo. La tartada. Natacha's play. YouTube for back your back and get out of here screen.
Numbers 5 and 10 are the split speech. So those will be a little bit more difficult. That's okay. We didn't really review that.
Screen the landlord, period.
The landlord screen.
And of here. wonderful learner. And yeah. Oh, ¿se ha dado cuenta?
Ya los 5 no habíamos hecho. Yo puse así, the landlord screen.
Sí, pero allá va. Aquí tienes que
Aquí
poner.
tiene que haber una coma.
Period. I believe entre quote, quotation, I believe, como Tokyo Toshiko said, quotation. Pero el that ahí sin capital. I believe. Can you tell me?
¿Qué es esto?
Can you tell me?
¿Qué era esto? No te pregunto.
How are we doing?
Thinking.
Good. I'm done.
Okay, we'll give you 1 or 2 more minutes.
Can you tell me how to get Azuko?
Okay. Just a minute. How do I, oh, here we go. Okay, so let's look at the answers. Here are your answers for exercise 1. Okay, number 1 we did together. So look at what you've written and see if it's similar or the same. It should be the same. John said, comma, quotation, I am very happy to meet you, period, end quotation. Okay. Again, if you put an exclamation point, that's fine. It just depends on how you listen and read it. Okay, so that was our example. Number 2, the doctor said, comma, quotation, capital Y, you should cut down on your salt intake, period, end quotation. Let's talk about that vocabulary. You should cut down on your salt intake. What does that mean? What do you think?
Eating salt.
Eating salt is not good. So when you say cut down, like when you cut down something, like cut down a tree,
Decrease.
Phrasal verb. When you cut down, it means eat less of. Like I really need to cut down on sugar if you eat a lot of sugar. Or cut down on carbs if you're trying to go on a diet, which sounds so sad. But if you were. The doctor said you should cut down on your salt intake. Intake is how much you eat. Your intake. Okay? So the doctor's not happy with his patient. He has high sodium levels, that means. Okay, you should cut down on your salt intake. How did we do on number 2?
Number 2, good.
Good?
No, Natasha is number 3.
Okay, number 3. Natasha explained, comma, quotation, capital I am here to learn, not to fool around, period, quotation marks. Fool around just means like mess around or like not take something seriously. To fool around, not take something seriously. Okay. Don't fool around. Means like don't, like you need to take it seriously. Don't play games. Okay, number 4. This is different because it has the quotation at the beginning. The direct speech is at the beginning. Pack your bags and get out of here, screamed the landlord. Oh no. Okay, so start quotation with a capital P. Pack your bags and get out of here. It means leave quickly, get out. Exclamation point, end quotation. Screamed the landlord. Do not capitalize the S in screamed.
Don't get the
Okay? Even if it's after the exclamation point, do not capitalize it because that's not a sentence. Screamed the landlord is not a sentence.
The landlord.
Okay? The reported verb will not be capitalized. Okay? And you remember a landlord is what? Do you remember what's a landlord?
Owner.
The owner of what?
Of the building, of the house.
Yes, it's the owner of wherever you are staying. Okay. Good.
This sentence, please.
What'd you say?
Can you repeat the sentence, please?
Yeah. Pack your bags and get out of here, screamed the landlord. Okay.
Okay.
Number 5 is a little bit tricky. It says, I believe, Toshiko said, okay, you can see it number 5, quotation, comma, Toshiko said, comma, that you are holding my bag. Okay, and then there's another quotation. This does not happen very often. That was a challenge question.
Which one, 5?
Number 5, because it's split. Okay, but it would be, I believe, in 2 quotations, comma, Toshiko said, comma, another quotation, not capitalized for the second quotation, that you are holding my bag.
Quote, period and quotation at the end.
End quotation, yeah.
Teacher, do you have the answers on different page?
Do you not see them?
No.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Quotation.
Oh, no. Yes, I do.
This is the
Me
exercise,
too.
but we can see the answers.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, no. Okay, hang on.
Here.
I thought I was showing you the answers the whole time.
No.
No.
Let's see.
At the end. Period quotation.
Now?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Wow, that was probably really hard to imagine in your head.
Thank
Okay, here's,
Yeah, you will send this document in WhatsApp, please.
Yes, I
Can
will.
you send it?
yes, I will. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, I sure will. Okay, here are your answers. I'm so sorry. They were shared on my screen. That's so funny. Weird.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, yes, here they are. Okay, so look at numbers 1 through 5.
Quotation.
Okay, and check your answers.
Quotation. A mí claro que sí.
Claro que no. Toshiko said it's not quotation.
Pero ella dijo que sí.
Okay, check your answers through 5. Okay, number 6 says, can you tell me how to get to Route 17? Atsuko asked. Okay, so quotation around the direct speech, capitalize the first letter, and then end quotation after the punctuation, which is a question mark. Atsuko asked, period. Number 7, the fastest way out is through the library, Robert explained.
Mhm.
Okay, so in this case, capital at the beginning, quotation mark, capital letter, and it's just, instead of a period, it's a comma, right? Don't forget that. If you're going to have a period, don't, it has to be a comma. Robert explained. Keep wanting to say Roberto. Robert explained. Period.
Teacher,
Yes.
in Spanish, the period and comma go after the quotation.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Okay, yeah, not in English. It goes before. I didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in English, it always goes before.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a difference then. Interesting. Huh, I didn't-
كده ازاي؟
yeah. Number 8,
امتى؟
change, right? So the,
امتى انا عندي لسه ممكن في teacher.
we will have a test on Friday, period. That's the quotation marks. The professor said, comma, quotation mark, capital, we will have a test on Friday, period, end quotation. Okay. Number 9, Boris yelled, where are my new shoes? Boris yelled, comma, start quotation, capital W, where are my new shoes? Question mark, end quotation. That's switched in Spanish if you're a Spanish speaker. Okay, and number 10 says, I think that you are wrong, Oleg stated, and I also feel that you don't understand the subject at all. I think that you are wrong is in quotations with a comma, but the comma goes before the quotation ends. Oleg stated, comma, quotation, not capitalized for the second quote. And I also feel that you don't understand the subject at all. Again, those ones are challenging. Don't worry too much about those. Okay, do you have any questions about these 10? How did you do?
Teacher, after in the number 4, after is screamed. So is no comma there?
No. So if it's an exclamation point or a question mark, there's no comma. It would only be if you would put a period. But if it's like pack your bags and get out of here, right? That's a loud sentence. We call those loud sentences. In that case, it's an exclamation point and then there's no comma. It's just end quotation.
Okay, but after is screamed. No? ED is screamed.
No. Nope. Screamed the landlord, right? Because he was the one that said it. Screamed the landlord. Yeah, no.
Okay.
The only time there will be a comma after the verb is if it's split like this on number 10. I think that you are wrong, Oleg stated, comma, because then it's continuing the second quotation. But if it's just one, no. It'll just be a comma after the verb if it's at the beginning. The professor said, comma, we will have a test on Friday. But if it's at the end, no. Good question. Any other questions?
Teacher, I have a question on number 5.
Okay.
The first quotation is, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Toshiko said is not between quotation two?
No, because Toshiko said that whole thing. So for example, he said, I believe that you are holding my bag. But when they quoted him, they put it in the middle. I believe, Toshiko said, that you are holding my bag. Toshiko said that entire sentence at one time. But when the author or when the writer directly quoted him, right, he put the Toshiko said in the middle. So that part is not quoted.
Right.
Yeah. These ones are a little bit trickier and they are not used very often in the English language. So don't worry too much, but it's just if you split the quotation. So if I said, I like to go shopping and Veronica was directly quoting me, she would say, I like, in quotations, Lydia said, in quotations, to go shopping. It's just a different way to write it.
I like Lydia said.
I think.
If you're splitting up the quote, if you're making the quote two different things, even though they said it at one time.
Because what you're putting in quotation is what she said.
Okay. Okay, our time is going to end. So we will do one more. I think I'm going to have to start a new Zoom. So I'll send you one more link for the last 10 minutes. We're going to do one more thing. Okay. Okay. I'll see you in a minute.